I'm the co-founder, along with Christina Riza, of Genesian, a corporation devoted to the exploitation of genetic information that we got from the Methuselah flies developed by Michael Rose over there. It began about 4.5 years ago, and that's the company. I'm just going to quickly go through a bunch of stuff that's germane to the title, that is why we don't live very long. This is, in a sense, the history of mortality. Notice that in prehistory, basically dominated by infant deaths, it was essentially a plunge. And that in prehistory, the mean lifespan was less than 30. At the time of Jesus, it was about 30. So when he died on the cross at 32, he was going slightly better than the average. Notice the difference between British India in the 20s and Mexico in the 20s. This is the so-called survival curve. These guys didn't have the technology that Mexico did. Why? Because it was living next door to the leading technological power in the world. And so at various places on the planet, there are very different lifespans. A year and a half ago, I was in Mali, mean lifespan 48. I met in the Dogon Heights, the head of a village who simply refused to believe that I was older than he was, and he was 56. England, 1960s. This is roughly the best possible. Yeah. I hope immortality works better than this. And the main point about the extension of longevity in the last 2 centuries is that most of it has come from the increase in hygiene, not from underlying deep intellectual knowledge. Back. Back. That's forward. Is there something unstable about this computer?
I don't know. Your presentation is a PDF.
It's a PDF, which should be easier to run.
It should be, but I'm not familiar with it. With showing a PDF as a slideshow.
Anyway, here. That's the human lifespan from 1600 on. I'll show it to you again. And you'll notice that it simply took off with the Industrial Revolution. Okay, let's leave it there, because this actually has... I give up. I give up. Well, I'll just talk faster as this jumps through the program.
Oh, Greg, I'm so sorry.
This is so fucking stupid. Is there some reason you can't show a PDF? Anyway, look, the main point I wanted to make in the 20th century is that the advent of vaccines changed the entire dynamic in populations. And you could see it in the statistics, if we could ever see them, because all the small little mini plagues that marched through the human population all the way through the 19th century and up to 1940 went away. And you stopped seeing all these fluctuations. And the progress forward in this last century has been, since then, quite monotonic. And the separation between males and females has continued to broaden. But that's a product of the invention of vaccines and truly effective drugs as well. And that era is essentially ending now, although the benefits will continue. You've got to go to more advanced technologies in order to make real progress. And the real progress remaining to be done will be based on, I hope, genomics. And that's the curve I promised you. You notice all these oscillations? This is the Spanish influenza. You can't even see the First and Second World War on this resolution. And all these ripples go away in about 1940, and then it's monotonic. And that continues into this century, too. It just wiped out these small plagues that were running through the population, mostly due to fevers and inflammations. The point is that we still got this kind of aging curve in which people die increasingly at a great rate, and then the reason this curve drops off is you run out of people, which is actually not good. And so the trick is, how do you get across the people talk about going to the singularity. How do you get to the singularity? You got to live to get to be there. I asked Ray recently what his preferred date was. He said maybe 2040, 2045. You got to get to 2045. People in this room, probably including me, won't make it. So I decided to do something about that. And of course, it's true that people like my old friend Joe Haldeman and others have envisioned futures in which your longevity is going to depend on having money. Well, welcome to the future, because it's true now. This is, in fact, the death rate as a function of GDP per capita. Now, there's a lot of scatter, but notice a clear trend. And it's better to be rich for many, many reasons, but also because you get more time. And I do not want to see a future in which this becomes exaggerated, because it could. We could get the wealthy, long-lived. The Strollbrugs, right. And the reason, borrowing a slide from Michael Rose, is this, that basically, until about 10, 15 years ago, we didn't know how to cast light into our own genome and or figure things out to any great extent. And so, and that's fine if you look at simple chemical reactions like this. That is to say, if you can understand this sort of stuff, this is simple, tryptophan. But in fact, genomics looks like this. And in fact, worse, it looks like this. It is so information rich that it becomes an IP problem. And the way that we have, that Michael Rose invented, of getting through the IP problem is to use artificial selection on organisms to pull traits out of organisms and make them show us their genomics that we can use. And longevity is what we're worried about, so what he did was produce, after 30 years, flies that live 5 times longer than the control flies. 5 times, through over 700 generations. So Christina Riza and I bought those flies. It seemed like a good maneuver. I mean, why not invest in flies? And Michael got this idea from Robert A. Heinlein, he told me, with Methuselah's children, and therefore our holding company is called Methuselah Flies. I thought of calling it Methuselah's children, but interestingly that was taken. So the point is, the Heinlein method was the same as Michael's. It's just that he calculates that it would take 17,000 years to do that, and that's not soon enough for me or you. So here's his agenda. He simply bred these flies, and you get results that look like this. This is the survival curve. The long-lived females do much better than the normal females. And there's a moving part here I'll omit, but the point is, as reproduction goes up in age, you stop passing bad genes on to other generations. That's why, in fact, we begin to deteriorate significantly, roughly around 40, because we stop reproducing at that age. And we live, on mean, twice as long as 40, 80 or so. Now, and that's with clean hygiene. So the thing is, how do you get to pharmaceuticals? Well, pharmaceuticals take a long time. So Genesian Corporation, having had all this genomic information, we took the information from the flies, mapped it into the humans, looked at its disease implications by looking at genome-wide associations, and we ferreted out hundreds of genes we know are associated with human longevity that others don't. Most of them are cardio, diabetes, and neurological. So now I'm just going to jump over some of this and show you, cut to the chase. I promise you data. Here's data. This is a substance Genesian developed and put on the market yesterday. It's this bottle of pills, which has 4 herbs in it, and therefore is not a drug. That's the trick. We decided, instead of developing drug targets, we would go to find, since we know the genomics, what substances upregulate genes that we know are good at defending your body against given assaults. And we picked cardio particularly, and not just because Christina Riza is a cardiovascular specialist, but because it kills most of it. In fact, it kills far too many of us. And it's one thing, by the way, you can do something substantial about by simply getting some exercise. This is the response of the lab animals, flies, to the controls and the treated. And as you can see in both males and females, this substance improves longevity, and the most important thing is that it gives you a long time without a great death rate, and then you drop down to this plateau. The interesting thing is the plateau. Particularly, and we don't quite understand that yet, but it looks eerily like the late life plateau that Michael Rose and Larry Mueller found in lab flies who had been bred for great longevity. So the point is, this is induced by some herbs. The background of it, we believe, is that the genes that these herbs are upregulating are associated with the repair mechanisms in stem cells. That is, they don't make new stem cells, they simply help stem cells do their job better. At least we believe that's so. And so we went ahead and we tried it on people. And this shows that the red curves are after that the HDL increased across the distribution, and this was independent of whether people were taking statins or not. And therefore, it's not the statin mechanism that we're simply imitating. It's something else. And it's probably a repair mechanism. At least that's my guess, but I'm not a biologist. I just play one in talks like this. If you look at the TC and HDL ratio, you get the same sort of thing. You can knock it down with this substance. And the same thing for a diastolic and systolic blood pressure. So we actually know what this does in humans, and we can see that it does a great deal of good on mortality in flies. And so we decided to actually market it. I mean, we wanted to see if we could develop such a thing, and it has taken us, after all, 4 years to figure out how to do this. But the main point is that this is the fast track that Genescient decided to follow 4 years ago, and it has started to pay off. We have other tracks. I mean, we actually will develop molecules for drug companies and so forth and so on, but that necessarily involves the decade pause before you may get to market with something that will help people. And it's also true that you have to look at side effects in all these measures. And when you're going after single molecules, I believe there's an inherent greater danger in looking for side effects, in producing side effects you don't want. So that's basically the corporate agenda. And it's really a worked out example of what I think, if we're going to focus on doing something about longevity right now and improving societies by improving longevity, because I think it generally does, you have to also look for things that improve fitness. You don't want fragile people who require a great deal of care to live a great long times and simply impose a burden on society. Besides, people don't want to live that way. So the agenda here is to find ways to upregulate genes that use the natural defenses you've got, but enhance them artificially by the upregulation, or in some cases, by the way, downregulation of genes. That's the agenda of the company, and it seemed to us that that was the fastest way to make use of genomics, because there's been something of a fading of the ability of faith in the ability of science and technology to actually do this thing with genomics, because it has now been over a decade and there haven't been any products out. Plus, the early simple things we thought we could do with genomics, predict your mean lifespan, say, with great accuracy, has never happened. And the reason is that it's a very complicated subject. There are not a few genes regulating longevity. There are many, many hundreds. And therefore, the diagnostics companies such as 23andMe and others have, since they're using only publicly available knowledge and no proprietary knowledge, have really not been able to market to people anything that they can actually much use in their lives. The famous study published a couple of months ago is that if you look at hundreds of thousands of people and look at their genomics, you still can't predict height of a person from genomics better than 10% accuracy. That's really not a great performance. It's going to take a long time to understand how to use genomics, and Genescient was founded to actually find a short route that we could do something now, because I noticed I wasn't getting any younger. And neither is anybody in this room. It's just that we're perhaps at different rates. So that's the agenda, and that's what I think you can do now to become transhuman in future, because remember, you have to get to that future first. Thank you.